Hi everybody, this is Mad Matt 2024, Ford Escort Owners Association.net, Mazda3forums.com. Today I'm going to show you how to swap fifth gear and replace the fifth gear synchronizer on a Mazda 3. These instructions should be the same on pretty much all 2004 through 2009 Mazda 3s with the 5-speed manual transmission. This is a 2008 Touring hatchback with the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder in it. Well, that's enough information. Let's get started. Now, the first thing you're obviously going to need to do is jack up and support the front end of the car. Don't use just a jack. Be sure to use jack stands when you do this. We want to keep everyone safe. And you want to locate your jack stand, I don't know if you can see it, right in this cutout right here, where it's designed to support the vehicle weight on the pinch weld. So I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to try to get it as high as I can so I have enough clearance. I'm going to try to get the jack stand in the right place here. Slowly let it down. You want to make sure you have the car in first gear and have the parking brake engaged when you do this. There we go. Now I am going to put the jack in the fully lifted position over here as well, just as a little bit extra reinsurance so that the car doesn't fall on me. But remember, I still have a jack stand under there. Never get under a car supported only by a jack. There we go. See, and the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove the plastic belly pan under here. We're going to need to get to that in order to, we need to remove it in order to drain the transmission fluid and refill it later. There's going to be 4 bolts in the back, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. It's going to be 3 across the front here. And there should be 2 plastic clips over here. Mine, I've replaced the plastic clips with bolts, but from the factory they should be plastic clips. And now to remove this, you're going to have to pull the sides out here. 2 pieces in the back, and then just slide it back, and it comes right off like that. In order to do that, first thing you got to do is take the battery cover off and remove this battery vent. 2 clips, one there, pull that off. You got 2 screw clips right here. Supposed to be able to use a Phillips screwdriver and just carefully unscrew them. Unscrew the little plastic screw in the center. Well, actually, I don't even need to undo those 2. All I got to do is undo this one over here. And half the time these little things don't work and you got to pry under them with a flathead screwdriver in order to separate it and get it to come off. And just pull this whole thing off like that. Now let's see here, airbox. I honestly haven't taken this out before, but it should be a fairly straightforward process. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew right here. Disconnect the hose from the throttle body. I'm going to unhook this. See, just pinch those 2 little blue pieces in, and it should pop right out. At least that's the way it looks. Yep, there we go. And disconnect the mass airflow sensor. You have to push the tab right here, pull down. Disconnect that. Now there's 4 clips holding this cover on here. Undo those. There's a hose clipped to the cover as well over here. I'm going to unclip that. You can see that. It's right down there. Just make sure you can see. Yeah, you can see. Pop this up and out. Should just. These can always be fun when they haven't been removed in a long time. There we go. Get that off. Pull the air filter out. Now up here, this is just held in by some rubber clasps. There's one of them right here. That seems to be the only thing holding it on, aside from a couple little rubber stoppers on the underside. So, there, you should be able to pull this up now. Yep, there's one. There we go. Okay. And there. Now the air box is out, and I can get in there to fill my transmission. The fill plug should be somewhere around, I don't know if you can see my hand, somewhere around here. We'll get a better view of it from underneath the vehicle. Though the next thing we're going to have to do is pull off this driver's side wheel. Get a good view here. Now, I understand not everyone has an impact gun, but it is probably the easiest way to remove a wheel from a vehicle. So if you don't have one, you can use a tire iron. Now, what we need to do is gain access to this transmission end cap in here. Let me make sure you can see that. End cap of the transmission, which is right behind this. I don't know if you can see it too well. Let me see here. Yeah, there it is, this piece right here where my hand is. And it looks like I'm going to have to take this piece of plastic off. Looks like we got two bolts up here and a clip in the middle. See if I can get you a better view of that. This is the first time I've done this too. I've done fifth gear swap on another car. It's just it wasn't a Mazda 3. These are 10 millimeter bolts. Gotta be careful with these. Sometimes you can get them to unscrew, but you can't push hard on the head. There we go. That pretty much exposes everything in there. This end cap of the transmission. Fifth gear and the synchronizer assembly is going to be located behind this. There's a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts that go around the outside, and there's going to be two big nuts in here. One should be there, one should be here, and that's what holds the gear stacks on the end of the transmission. Though the next thing we're going to have to do is drain the fluid out of the transmission. Now, I don't have any new fluid for this. I kind of want to document my fuel economy on the original transmission fluid fill, so I'm going to reuse what I drain out of here. Of course, if you're going to reuse fluid from a transmission or an engine or anything like that, coolant, make sure that your drain pan is clean. I've completely cleaned this one out before I started this video so that I can keep that fluid clean and be able to reuse it in the car. Now the next thing we're going to have to do is drain the fluid out. So let me show you where the drain and fill plugs are. Okay. See on the side of the transmission, this here is the fill plug. Most Mazda G series transmissions are going to have a fill plug there. The drain plug is here. It's recessed between these little pieces of metal. I assume that's so that this doesn't accidentally get snapped off or something if you hit something big, run over something. So first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to crack this loose, make sure the I can get the fill plug out. Therefore, I know that I can get fluid back in it if I drain it out. Can't 100% remember what size these are supposed to be. Definitely not an 18 or 21. Not a 22 millimeter. Let me see what I got in here. Okay, it appeared to be a 23 millimeter socket. Here. Just trying to make sure you can see what I'm doing here. You should be pretty easy to remove. Yep, I got that one loose. Now let's get the fill plug loose. That broke loose pretty easy. I think it goes to say don't over tighten these when you put them back in. I'm going to pull the fill plug out first before I pull the drain one, otherwise it's just going to glug, 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 take forever to drain. There's a washer on these plugs too, so don't lose that. And that's pretty brown, so it goes to say I'll probably be replacing this at some point in the future. It's just I don't have fluid for it right now. And we're going to let that drain out. Now I don't know if I'm going to have to drop the transmission and engine on this car a little bit to get this cover off. It looks like I should be able to get it off far enough to clear that frame rail right there. The last car I did this on was a Ford Escort ZX2, and you do have to drop the transmission a little bit to get the cover off. On this car, it doesn't look like you absolutely have to. And I should be able to access all the bolts either from the wheel well or inside the engine compartment. They're 10 millimeter bolts. I'm just going to crack all these loose, make removal a little bit easier. I'm going to have to get to that one over there, the last one from the top with a 10 millimeter deep socket. Yeah, I can get to it for that. Okay. Zip these out really quick with my screwdriver with a 10 millimeter bit driver attachment. Alright, now there's no gasket on these. These are sealed. via a gray kind of silicone. I'm going to use Permatex Ultra Gray when I do put this back on. They will take a little bit of finagling to get off just because that sealant is stuck on there. So I'm going to use a screwdriver and try to pry it off. I'm just going to take this hammer on the lip here where it bolts on from the back side where one of these bolts is. I'm just going to give it a little tap. Oh, she's coming. It'll take a little bit of finagling. Break that seal. Oh, there we go. We got it. There's dripping oil. Now I'm going to put that drain plug back in there so it doesn't all leak out and drip all over my driveway. And then back a little bit more. Catch as much of that fluid as possible. Or gear oil, I should say. Just going to gently put the screwdriver in there and twist. Try to get this thing off. Okay, there we go. But I don't need to drop anything else. The pan just came right off. Right now, there's our pan right there. And there's our 5th gear set and synchronizer. Now let me see. I'm not sure what size these nuts are going to be on the Escort. I did it on. These nuts were, I believe, 1 1/4 inches. I believe that equates to about 32 millimeters. So I'm going to get my 1 1/4 inch socket out and see if it fits. See if that's the same. And that is the same, a perfect fit. So that's what I'm going to use to take these off. First thing we got to do though, we got to unstake these nuts. Now, these are a locking nut and they work by being staked. There's a little notch in this shaft here, and basically they take a punch and they pound this in here after they're torqued to spec on both of these. So first thing you got to do is you got to pound that stake out in order to get the nut off. You're going to use a chisel or punch and a hammer to do that. Alright, I'm back. Now these have been a little bit of pain. This small one here was pretty easy to get out. This big one here though was just being such a pain. I couldn't get a chisel that fit perfectly in there. A punch won't catch. Actually I ended up using a small screwdriver and a hammer to get that out. I got it out part way. I don't think it's gonna be that easy to take it off any further, but I've got an impact gun, so what I'm gonna try to do, I'm gonna try to just zip these off with it as is. I've done this before, and a lot of times it'll push the little stake out when you're trying to take it apart with the impact gun. Now, I understand not everyone has an impact gun, and there are a couple other ways around this. What you can do, put the car in first gear, have a friend stand on the brakes, then put your nut on there, your socket on there, along with a breaker bar, and stand on the breaker bar. And what'll happen is holding the brakes will stop the transmission from turning, and then you can get the nut off. The other way that I've used when I've been by myself, removing the 5th gear set from a vehicle in the junkyard, what I did is I put it in 5th gear and I jammed a piece of metal in between the gears. Now, you may think that's going to damage the gears, but really there's pretty little risk to it if you use the right kind of metal, because a grade 3 fastener or a bolt, something like that, is a lot softer than the steel gears inside of a transmission. I've done that before, but ideally you want, ideally I think the impact gun is the best way to remove these. Trying to set a good example here for everyone. I'm not using my impact gun on my chrome 1 1/4 inch socket. There's a risk they can break and fly apart. I've used an impact gun on it before, nothing's happened, but for the sake of everyone else, I've got a 32 millimeter impact socket. Just gonna zip this out. And it comes off just like that. Okay. And just be sure you set these nuts in a safe place. Really, you should be replacing them after every time you take them off, but I think we can reuse them. I've done it before. Now, next thing we're going to have to do here is remove this shift fork. Now, it's a pretty simple process to remove that. There's a pin, not a sledge pin, well, just a split pin that runs through here. And what you do is you just take a punch, stick it in there, hammer it, and it'll eventually pop out the top. Just gotta find the right size punch for this. There we go. I think that's gonna be pretty close. Or I think I might need something bigger. No, this is going to be the right size, I think. It's a... what size punch is this? 1/8 inch. Grab a hammer and knock this little thing out. It's moving. I think I should technically have a bigger punch here. This one sort of wants to fit in the hole in the middle of the pin. I think I got it there. Yep, the pin's out far enough. Probably knock it out all the way. Seems I can't tap on it from the top side. A little bit more. There it is. And you can see what kind of a pin that is. Let's set that aside. And now I'm going to remove the Synchronizer assembly. Now you want to make sure the little parts inside it don't come apart and it only goes on one way. Just go very carefully. I'm going to take this and I'm going to wiggle the whole assembly off in one go, hopefully. Okay, here we are. Now what I'm going to change on this, because I do have a grind in 5th gear, is this brass piece right in here. It's the Synchronizer ring. I've got a new one. I truly am not 100% sure why this was grinding, but it's pretty much the easiest thing to replace in there, and it's most likely what the culprit is. So I'm going to put the new one in. Hopefully they gave me the right one. Just going to pull this one out. Yep, looks like they gave me the right one. It's the old one and the new one right there. And I'm just going to insert that back in. There's 2 little places where these fit in. Just like that. And really, I'm hoping this works, but this old one really doesn't look too bad. Well, only time will tell. Now move on to the next process, this load of stuff I got from the junkyard. I pulled this gear out of a Ford Escort station wagon with a manual transmission I found in the yard. Now, it also has a G-Series transmission, though a slightly different variant. I wasn't 100% sure if this was going to work or not. I needed to change the synchronizer anyway, so I thought, why not get this? It didn't cost me that much at all. And it's looking like the gears are going to be pretty much the same. And I also bought the Synchronizer assembly from the Escort as well. It seems like a better assembly than the one that Mazda put in there. It's got 2 synchronizer rings in it instead of 1. And I was going to see if I could fit it, but it looks like I won't be able to, simply because there's no place for this pin right here to go. Yeah, it doesn't really line up with the hole right here. And even if it did, the gears are in the way and you're going to have some problems. It's not going to clearance. So I guess that was a waste, but at least now I know. And all of us know that's not going to work. Now back on to what I did yet. The 5th gear set from the Escort. And I also bought the locking nuts as well. So I mean, you can reuse these as long as you don't stake them in the exact same spot they were staked before. And there's a likelihood that these ones, the tang will line up in a spot that hasn't been staked, as opposed to the old ones. So there's a high probability that I won't need to buy new nuts for this. And there's the big gear, which has a little bearing sleeve in there. Kind of tried to keep that together. And I've got the little gear right here. There's a little one. And right now it's looking like they're pretty much the same part, which is a good thing. And we're going to remove the 5th gear set from this right now. That's pretty simple. All you got to do is just pull the gear off. Pull a little one off, like that. And you just pull the big one off. That sleeve seems to be stuck on there. Let's get that sleeve off as well. And there we go. Their old 5th gear set. Now the new one, let's see, just for comparison, I got the new one in the left hand. And as you can see, those are identical pretty much. So there shouldn't be any problem swapping parts between different families of G-Series transmissions, which is especially useful if you're looking for this 5th gear. Now I'm just going to go and clean these gears and then I'll get back to you. Alright, I'm back. Did a little bit more than just clean the gears up. I also cleaned this mating surface right here where it has to seal. I cleaned it on there. I also, after I cleaned it, I sprayed it down with carburetor cleaner, wiped it off. Also cleaned the transmission pan and the gear set we're going to install. Now it's very important you get all the dirt out of the gears. I had honestly dropped these on the ground in the junkyard, so I had to get a plastic brush and sweep out all the little grooves, all the teeth, including this bearing sleeve in the center. Now it's time to put them on, and it's the moment of truth. This should just slide right on here. There we go. Slid right on. And now we have the little gear. Go on, it's got a mesh. Line those up. And look at that, it's a perfect fit. Perfect fit. So now all we got to do is put the shift fork back on, reseal the cover, fill the transmission back up with fluid. Okay, now it's time to install the shift fork. I am just going to put it back on the way that I originally took it off. Let's get a rag here and wipe a little more dirt off it. I keep everything as clean as possible inside of a manual transmission because there is no transmission filter in these kind of transmissions. So line that up. Tighten the teeth up. Simply push that on. Okay. And next thing we got to do is put that little retaining pin in the bottom, split pin. Pretty simple. All you have to do is just tap it in with a hammer. If one end is beveled, that's generally the end you want to insert first. Here we go. Just going to pound it in until it's flush with the bottom. There we go. Now that's done, we got to put the nuts back on there. So I'm just going to make sure that those are clean. Yeah, I'm going to try the original ones first. If they don't work, then I'm going to try using the ones I pulled off that car in the junkyard. These are both different size shafts, so only one fits on each. You can't interchange them. Now there is a torque specification for these. Yeah, Mazda service manual lists. Let me go and look at it real quick. Okay, Mazda service manual lists 95 to 144 foot-pounds of torque for securing these nuts. Now, I do have a torque wrench, but I don't really have a way to hold these in place while I use it. So I'm going to use my impact gun. Now the impact gun, if I set it on the second lowest setting, I know it puts out torque somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to probably 130 foot-pounds, so it should be within spec. And make sure it's set right. Put it on setting 2, and we're going to zip these back on. Just until it stops. Right, and the good news is this has actually rotated them a little bit beyond the spot where they were last staked, so we can reuse these. Now, in order to stake one of these, all you're going to want to do is get yourself a chisel, kind of like this. You might need to use a smaller one. You're just going to line it up with that groove. You're just going to pound that in. All right, that's about as good as I think it's going to get. It's a real awkward angle to stake those. That one looks a lot better than it actually is. Doesn't look too good on the camera, but really it's pounded down in there. So I guess next step, we're gonna put some silicone sealant on there and bolt the cover back in place. All right, now we're back, and I'm just gonna put some silicone sealant on this. This is the kind of stuff you want to use right here, Permatex Ultra Gray. It's designed for transmission pans, oil pans, that kind of thing. It's pretty stiff, makes a good gasket. All right. After I'm done, it'll look like that. Now let's go and install this on the car. Get you pointed up there. There we go. A couple of these bolts ready. Yeah, that pin in the center of this, that's going to fit in the middle of this. So make sure everything in there is clean, and we're just carefully going to take this. I touched the brake light with that for a second. Take it and set it up there. That little pin in the center is locating it pretty good, so I can get all the bolts in here started. Now I'm just going to hand tighten them with this bit driver. This is working good. I can see it squirting out around the edge. Now all I've got to do is the one on the top, which is a little bit difficult. Get that one started and installed. And if you wonder how I'm accessing that, I'm accessing it from down in here. See if I can pick that up. Yep, there's the transmission cover, and it's kind of down in here. Oops. Drop the bolt. Yeah, actually you can see it pretty well up in there. Though it's not as straight a shot as it looks in this picture. And let's see, I'm going to take a break, and when I come back all these are going to be tightened. Alright guys, back again. I ended up taking about an hour break from this. I had to let the sealant tack up before I could put oil in the transmission. So the hour's passed now though. The sealant is starting to tack up. Probably would tack up a little bit faster if it was warmer outside, but it's not. So I'm going to go and fill this up. Alright guys, we're back. Just finished filling the transmission up. This here is a paint strainer I used as I got towards the bottom. I didn't want any little bits of metal or junk getting into the transmission. Just a little precaution. I am eventually going to change this fluid, but for now I'm just going to put it back in there and see how this goes. Well, there isn't too much left to do now. Just have to well, there's no leaks on the transmission that I can see. Oh, I guess we do have, oh no. It's just leaking out around the fill plug. Now, fluid capacity on this transmission is about 3 quarts of fluid. Actually, I believe it's like 3.07 quarts, something like that. So 3 quarts of fluid will do it if you're putting fresh in. And basically, this has a fill plug in the side, as I said before. The only difference with a fill plug is basically what you do is you fill through that plug until fluid starts to come out of it. And once fluid starts to come out with it, where the fluid level is even with the top of the fill plug hole, that means it's full. And you want to stop. You don't want to overfill it. So now all we're going to have to do, let me get you a good angle here. You can see what I'm doing. I'm going to have to go and put the fill plug back in that transmission and pull the drain hose out. I mean, fill hose. A little bit of fluid left in there. Try to encourage it to go in there where it belongs. When you tighten these, you don't want to go crazy with it. You just want to snug them up pretty much. Like that's good enough. Alright, now, next, I am going to put the little splash shield that goes over here back in place, one in the wheel well. Make sure I got everything here. Just going to take this, and we're going to use that plastic pin, put that in there. Plastic screw that goes in the center, just push that in. Got two 10mm bolts. Yeah, I think hand tight's going to be fine for them. Oh, and one thing you also want to do, and I'm bad, I haven't done it yet, is run the transmission through its gears, make sure it actually shifts into all of them. You should probably do that before you put the fluid and cover back on the transmission. So I guess all that's left to do is to reinstall the air intake and reinstall the plastic pan on the bottom. And one thing you also want to do is, I got some dirt in my throttle body there from taking it apart. You want to clean that out before you put it all back together. See, I'm just going to put this back in pretty much the way I took it out. Yeah. Around it. Everything is going to fit in there right. And you just got to push these down. So they're kind of like a snap-in kind of thing. And of course, got this little rubber guy there. Put your air filter back in. Put the air filter cover back on. Redo the 4 clips on that. Of course, make sure you've reconnected the intake tube to the throttle body. Put this hose back in this little clip on the lid. That back on. Reconnect the mass airflow sensor. Reconnect this. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I think it's PCV line, crankcase breather. Just clip that back in. Alright. Good. And of course you got your battery vent. That's it. That's fit. Right like that. Show a little clip right here. Clip that back in. but not least the battery cover. See if we get a better angle on that for you. All right. Well, that's it. We're pretty much, well, we're mechanically all done with this. All it's left to do now is put the is clean up any of the drips coming from the transmission, put the plastic belly pan back on, put the wheel back on, and take it for a test drive. Thanks for watching.